On today's show, Spawn 300, Day of Dread, and Legion of Superheroes. It's Previews World Weekly, and it's happening right now. What's up, Previews World? It's Wednesday, it's New Comic Book Day, which means it's time for Previews World Weekly. I'm one of your hosts, Troy Jeffrey Allen.
And I'm Thea, and as usual, we're here every week to remind you guys to stop at a comic shop and get involved in what's happening in the world of comics. And we want to remind you, if you're enjoying the show and you want to see more, be sure to give us a like and subscribe to keep the nerd news coming.
And it's a big news week, big week in general, I think.
Yeah.
So there's going to be a lot of stuff this episode. Well, this issue, I think that's still appropriate, right?
Fair
for what
enough,
we're doing here, right? Did you see the Joker trailer?
Yeah.
Yeah, what'd you think?
I mean, again, I'm not super excited for this film in any capacity, but I mean, it looks pretty.
It looks pretty. No, it does. It does. No, that's fair. I'm curious about it. I don't know if I love it necessarily, but I am very curious about it. I mean, they've done Joker solo stories before, so yeah, I'm interested in seeing what direction it goes. But
I've said before, I think on the show, and at least in life, that I'm sort of sick of the villain sympathy backstories.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair.
So like, meh.
Right, yeah.
But I'm sure a lot of people are excited. I mean, a lot of people love Joker.
Right, no, they
so by all
definitely
means, don't let me dampen your spirit.
No, not at
but
all. No, it's yeah, no, I get that. Like that kind of like, okay, sympathy for the double thing. Like I get it, right?
Even when they did it with like Maleficent.
Yeah, right.
I was like, we don't really need this.
Right. No, I get that. I totally understand.
Again, really beautiful movie, but
I mean, something could just be said for like a bad guy who's just a bad guy.
Yeah.
And that's always amusing. Like I kind of feel like typically the ones I always love are just awful people that say awful things.
They just are.
Yeah.
I mean, there are people that exist like that in reality.
Right.
So
yeah, that's true.
why do we have to give them these sympathetic backstories?
Right. Yeah. So I get that. I also understand, like, you know, a character's been around this long. Got to do something different.
Right.
With them, maybe,
yeah. What else is left to do? Right.
Yeah,
kind of thing.
I get that. I get a King of Comedy vibe from it, which kind of gives me a little bit of a. It like piques my interest. That's all. Yeah. So
again,
also,
not like I'm not going to go see it either. Like
right. I mean, there is that too. Right. At the end of the day, we're probably going to go see
it.
Also, the Terminator trailer. I don't know if you saw this Terminator trailer. But
is there a new one?
There's a new one. There's a second one that just dropped.
I mean, I'm pretty interested in this. I've never been like the biggest Terminator fan, but even with the first trailer drop, I was like, I can get down with this. It's like really cool conceptually, and I love that they brought Sarah Connor back.
Yeah, that's a missing piece I think I've been waiting for. Like I want her trilogy to end.
Yeah.
Like, to come to a conclusion. I know there's a TV show, but and like
not the same.
Not the same, right. So yeah.
Cool.
And I know it's just kind of movie related, but like at the same time, there's Terminator comics. There's been tons of Terminator comics from Dark Horse, so you know we're somewhere on track. But we do want to dive headfirst into comics, so we're going to kick it over to Anamia, and she's going to show us what's at comic shops this week, and then we'll give you guys some of our picks. Check it out.
Hey Previews World! Every week we give you the rundown of some of the books hitting the shelves for the first time. Here's what's at comic shops for the week of September 4th. Is that it? No way! Your comic shop has something for every type of customer. So stop at a comic shop today, and we'll see you back here next week.
Thanks, Anamia. And of course, that's just a little bit of what's available at your shop this week. If you want to see a full list of titles, head on over to previewsworld.com/new releases to see what they've got. What are you interested in?
I picked this like every week it came out almost.
Yeah.
But like the Batman Damned book, I'm a big fan of it. Like we were actually just talking about the Joker. Lee Bermejo and Brian Azzarello also did a solo Joker story that people seem to really love.
Yeah.
And Batman Damned is like them teaming up again to tell a very different kind of Batman story. Like it's a nice little short 3-parter.
Cool.
The artwork's gorgeous. I've heard some people say it's overly rendered, but I'm not that big of a art person, so it works for me. I just, yeah, it's just cool. Like it's a re-examination of Batman, and they kind of do it in a reverse fashion. And I don't want to give it away because like ultimately the payoff for it is the thing that really like sells it.
Sure.
But reestablishing maybe Thomas Wayne wasn't such a great guy, or a great husband more specifically. That's also pretty interesting. The redesign in general, like of some of these characters, like they do some stuff with Enchantress, it's like awesome.
Cool.
They do a little redesign for Zatanna, and Deadman that's also really cool.
Nice.
So yeah, it's an interesting book. It's a cool book, and yeah, definitely check it out if you haven't get a chance. And everybody's talking about Batwang, but
whatever.
The book's good. Like I don't care. Like,
read it for the story.
Read it for the story.
Ignore the Wangs.
Not for the drama, right? Ignore the Wangs. What else? What should people? You threw me off with that one. What should people look forward to? What is your pick this week?
Samurai Jack.
Yes.
So this is the end of this little mini series. This is Samurai Jack: Lost Worlds. This is issue number 4, and so this is Samurai Jack and the Flat Earth.
Okay.
So he's been all over the planet. You know, he knows every corner of existence at this point, and he has even been in outer space. So going on a trip to prove the shape of the planet shouldn't be a big deal, right?
Right. Yeah.
But apparently not. So nothing's ever so easy when Jack finds his beliefs shaken to their core.
Okay.
So yeah, but I love Samurai Jack. I have always loved Samurai Jack. The cartoon immediately caught me as a I guess like in, what was that, middle schoolish for me?
Okay.
Maybe
right.
later.
Yeah.
And I used to doodle him on all my notes all the time and stuff. He's so good.
Yeah, I'm not it's something that just passed me by. Like I never really got a chance to watch it, but like
Highly recommend it.
I've said this before. I know I would like it. Like it's just one of those things like me getting around to it.
Do it.
Yeah, I should. I really should. And it's also like I always have to make sure I'm saying his name right. Jindy Tartakovsky. We were talking about this earlier. Like I did see the Star Wars series that he did, which was Clone Wars, and that was pretty awesome. It was like
beautiful.
Silent, like there was like
Just
it was basically
story.
just 6-part action stories, but like it was just about the Clone Wars, and so yeah, I also just dig that design and whatnot.
Absolutely.
So I'm gonna get around to it.
Do it.
I'm gonna add that to some queue, one of the many queues I have these days. I'll do it. I promise. So my other pick this week. You guys may have noticed that we've been pushing Small House, the Judge Dredd book, a lot lately. Well, that's because there's a big event this week, Saturday, Day of Dread. And I don't know if a lot of American stores are going to be doing a lot of stuff with it, but if you're a store in the UK, honestly throughout Europe, really, like chances are they're going to be celebrating this because that character is actually very big in the publishing world, in the comics publishing world there. But yeah, it's cool. Like I've been falling down a 2000 AD rabbit hole ever since like I started like kind of like having to promote this thing, and it's actually been really cool. I actually watched a documentary on Amazon called Future Shocks, and it really does underline like the historical significance of that company.
Yeah, they're not new.
They're not new. They've been around for a long time,
Yeah.
and like also there's some direct lines. I mean, Neil Gaiman came from 2000 AD.
Yeah.
Alan Moore came from 2000 AD. Grant Morrison came from 2000 AD. Garth Ennis came from 2000 AD. So like, yeah, all these like major players like in early comics, like if you like The Boys, this is the company where some of the better creations like from those writers came from. The Boys, Preacher, Sandman, like yeah.
Huge titles
all
that
these
everybody
people,
loves.
Yeah, all these people have transitioned from Vertigo into Vertigo. So definitely check that out. Small House Judge Dredd. Also, the other cool thing about the documentary was that like it kind of underlined how Judge Dredd was born out of Thatcherian politics.
Sure.
And so he was always meant to be kind of like a satirical or a satire of fascism. And so this book, in particular, Small House Judge Dredd book, kind of kind of steers him back in that direction.
Cool.
So yeah, it's a cool one. Like definitely check it out.
Nice.
Anyway, what else can people look forward to this week?
So this is a series that I discovered this week. It's called Triage.
Yeah.
This is the first issue. It's from Dark Horse, and it's sort of a sci-fi epic, and it's a mini-series.
Okay.
And it's from writer and artist Philip Sevy, so he did the entire thing. It looks super cool, super traditional sci-fi, like real trippy looking. The artwork is gorgeous. And it's about a dedicated nurse named Evie Pierce who awakens to this unfamiliar future world alongside 2 doppelgangers.
Okay.
And one of them is a young, snarky superhero, and the other's a hardened rebel military commander of a post-apocalyptic world.
Okay.
And there's a mysterious figure that's trying to hunt them down. So they have to team up to try and survive and discover why they were put together in this place.
Okay, nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
Very cool.
All right. For some reason I kept thinking that was based on a video game. I don't know why. It just looked like it for some reason.
It does look like it. Yeah, that's fair. Yeah. It's not a title that I've heard of if it is a...
Right, yeah. But I do know one thing. If there's a doppelganger involved, you should always kill your doppelganger.
I mean...
I think that's like kind of like the general rule of thumb there.
There can only be one.
There can only be one. So, other big things this week that you should look forward to. Legion of Superheroes. This is cool because, well, there's another pick this week that has multiple artists on it, but this one also has multiple artists on it. And I just recently saw that Entertainment Weekly revealed did the big Supergirl reveal. They showed some pages by Jim Lee, who's also in this book this week. And just like an older Supergirl. She seems a little hardened, and it's just some interesting ideas.
Some stuff.
Yeah, it's called Legion of Superheroes Millennium for a reason, and that's because they really are kind of like looking to the future, and a lot of people looking forward to this. So if you're not checking it out already, it might be something you want to keep an eye on.
Absolutely.
What else can people look forward to this
Spawn
week?
300.
Yeah.
It's here.
Yeah.
It's time.
It's time.
The milestone, we have reached it. So, of course, this is the 300th issue of Spawn, which makes it the longest-running independent series in comic book history. And legendary artists Todd McFarlane and Greg Capullo return with an all-new interior of pencils and additional art with Jason Sean Alexander and J. Scott Campbell and Jerome Opeña, And just great teams, great artists, all these really cool names involved, and just like so cool.
Right, yeah. No, I love that they're doing they're eventizing this in a very old school fashion.
As they should.
And I think that really works. And we have an interview with Todd McFarlane. It's a 10-minute long interview where we just kind of talk to him about really just recapping, not necessarily the story, but the experience of writing 300 issues of Spawn, give or take, right?
That's nice.
And he talks a little bit about inadvertently he talks about the importance of events.
Yeah.
So definitely give that a check. And we're actually going to have a little bit more about with McFarlane later, where he's just going to talk a little bit more about the movie that was supposed to happen or maybe happening with Jamie Foxx. So definitely check that out. Another interview I did this week actually is Something is Killing the Children. Or last week I did Something is Killing the Children. We had a live interview with James Tynion. And it was actually really cool. He's currently the writer of the Justice League, the co-writer of Justice League, but he's definitely has more horror roots. And this book in particular is him getting back to his horror roots. So definitely check that interview out. It's about 30 minutes or so, but if you're a fan of his other work, then you should definitely pick that up and definitely check out our interview because it'll give you some more insight into the book itself.
For sure.
As a matter of fact, here's a trailer for Something is Killing the Children, and when we come back, we'll start doing news. How about that? And that is Something is Killing the Children from Boom Studios. And be sure to check out the James Tynion interview. One thing that really struck me is they have this main character who's like the monster hunter. And the imagery of it is just it's immediate. You see it, okay, that's cool. And he does talk a little bit about that. He talks about going for an iconic image. And I know it might be too early to call it iconic, but it's definitely memorable and definitely impactful. So but now it's time for news.
True.
So we're going to kick it over to Thea, and she's going to talk some, and we're going to talk about what happened in comics in the last 7 days. Check it out.
Top of the list here is an item that I am personally very excited about. Boom Studios has announced that Once and Future, the highly acclaimed original series from New York Times bestselling writer Kieran Gillen, Russ Manning Award-winning artist Dan Mora, and acclaimed colorist Tamra Bonvillain, has been promoted to an ongoing series due to the overwhelming support from retailers and fans. The most anticipated original series launch of the year, Once and Future introduced readers to ex-monster hunter Bridget McGuire, who pulls her unsuspecting grandson Duncan into a world of magic and mysticism to defeat a legendary threat when a group of nationalists use an ancient artifact to bring a villain from Arthurian myth back from the dead. fans can find copies of Once and Future #1 everywhere comic books are sold, and due to overwhelming demand, additional printings of the premiere issue will be available at local comic shops throughout September.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know this is definitely your favorite thing. Did you get a chance to read the first issue yet? Not yet.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, that's fine. I mean, like I actually just went to my comic shop this week and just am stockpiling stories so I can get like deep into them before I start reading them.
Fair enough.
But it's clearly popular.
Yes.
And I know for your purposes, selfishly, right? Like there's going to be more of it. So definitely check out Once and Future.
For sure.
Yeah.
Next up, the Small Press Expo, the preeminent showcase for the exhibition of independent comics, graphic novels, and alternative political cartoons, is pleased to announce the 2018 winners for the annual presentation of the Ignatz Awards, a celebration of outstanding achievement in comics and cartooning. The Ignatz, named after George Harriman's brick-wielding mouse from his long-running comic strip Crazy Cat, recognizes exceptional work that challenges popular notions of what comics can achieve, both as an art form and as a means of personal expression. The Ignatz Awards will be presented at the Gala Ignatz Awards ceremony held on Saturday, September 14th at 9:30 p.m. For the list of categories and nominees, head on over to the PREVIEWSworld website.
Yeah, and yes, those are bricks.
Yes.
Those are the awards
Those
themselves.
are the awards, which is really funny.
Right,
I love it.
But you know why, you actually know why.
Yeah, I mean, I already just said it. Like,
Right,
he had a little mouse character, and like, the mouse uses bricks as his preferred weapon. So there you have it.
So I mean, yeah, it's like they do it every year at the Small Press Expo. It's always a lively event. So I think it's usually closed off to the public. But
I would assume so.
But if you're smart, you stay until afterwards because everybody floods into the lobby, and then it becomes fun again. So for everyone. So there you go. So what else?
Finally, this December, the Eisner Award-winning creative team of Hellboy Krampusnacht is reuniting for an all-new one-shot, Hellboy and the BPRD, The Seven Wives Club. Written by legendary Hellboy creator Mike Mignola and illustrated by acclaimed artist Adam Hughes, this ghostly yarn features Hellboy coming to the aid of a young girl whose ghost hunt in Savannah, Georgia goes terribly wrong. Things go from bad to worse, as they often do, when a visit to an abandoned medical school reveals sinister layers to a grisly long-ago murder. Adam Hughes will provide both the main cover and a variant cover, and Mike Mignola will also provide a variant cover. Hellboy and the BPRD, the Seven Wives Club one-shot, will hit your local comic shop shelves on December 11th.
Yeah, I love the Hellboy one-shots.
Me too.
They're just like the perfect way to just kind of just jump back in.
Yeah.
And I really do wish more comic book companies would do stuff like that.
Yeah, just little right.
Have
a little quick story.
Right, and they also do they have their ongoings, of course. But
Absolutely.
I'm always a fan of those.
Yeah.
So we were talking about Spawn 300 earlier in the show. This was your pick this week, and we did have a 10-minute. We do have a 10-minute video of us talking to Todd McFarlane.
Yeah.
But we clipped this one out. This is actually him talking about the movies, and that's actually one of the reasons that we clipped it out because we wanted just a comic book discussion.
Yeah.
But he talks about the Jamie Foxx project and the Blumhouse project and where that is, and gives some insight into where it is because I know a lot of people care about this one. So check this out. Todd McFarlane talking about Spawn the movie. The movie. Can we tell what can you tell us about it at this point in time?
Hollywood is a slow grind and it's unbelievable, right? So the world right now is drunk and excited about superhero comic book stuff to the point that just read this morning, Avengers now the biggest domestic box office movie ever, past Avatar, and it's trying to see if it can actually take over the worldwide number of Avatar. And almost everything in the last 5-7 years, either on TV or in film, that has come from comic book has succeeded, and to some extent succeeded wildly, right? Yeah. Who would have thought that Venom movie would be $1 billion movie? Who would have thought Aquaman would be the biggest grossing movie at Warner Brothers, beating all the Batman movies, right? So I keep going into studios and they keep going, well, Todd, we want you to add this and subtract this, and we want, and I keep saying the same thing. Why are we waiting to get it perfect? The crowd right now is drunk, and I've played poker from time to time, and you always want to play with drunk people because they will give you their money. For whatever reason, the world is now willing to give you their money to go see cool comic book stuff.
Yeah, right.
It doesn't have to be perfect. Nobody's going to say that all these superhero movies, every single one of them has been perfect. They've just been fun and they've been entertaining. So I go, guys, before they sober up, because who knows whether they'll shift into, music biopics is going to be the new hot thing.
Right.
let's get this thing out. And that's sort of been, and so they're nudging it. Look, I put out 300 issues of Spawn, and I understand that in Hollywood you're asking for millions to make a movie. Where doing a comic book, you're not. But in those 300 issues of Spawn, I'll show you some really great ones, and I'll show you some below average ones, right? You just hit and go, and you hit and go, and you hit and go, and I'm going, come on, we have to stop searching for the elusive perfection. And given that you guys do that anyways, and you still have bad movies, like, I don't know why you pick it on mine a little bit, but we'll get there. I'm just determined. If not, I've got outside money that we're beginning to put together, and we'll get there.
Yeah, it was a fun interview. I got to be honest with you. I got to talk to him for about 15 minutes and ask him some questions about just the history of the character. So you can get that entire thing on our YouTube channel right now. It's probably at the top because it went up over, actually I think it went up on Labor Day. So definitely check that out. Also, we were talking about events and how he's doing an old school approach to this. He definitely throws some shade at one of the big two companies in the interview. So I guess, which is not surprising. It's Tom McFarlane. He's part of the giant image exodus, so he probably would. But it's a juicy interview. It's a fun one. So, but now it's time for Toy Chest.
True.
So we're gonna kick it over to Natasha, and she's gonna show us what's inside comic shops this week. And then when we come back, we'll have some more things to chat about. Check it out.
Hey Previews World, here's this week's rundown of some of the toys, statues, and collectibles hitting store shelves for the first time. Let's take a look inside the Previews Toy Chest for the week of September 4th, 2019. Want to see more? Be sure to check out Talking Toys, our weekly show that spotlights new collectibles on their way to your friendly local comic shop. Just head over to previewsworld.com/talkingtoys to find out more.
So wait, what did you call Trunks again?
He's one of my OG anime boyfriends.
Oh, okay, all right. Yeah. You also jokingly said you only know old people animes. I'm in the same boat.
I'm not up on anime at all. It's sort of not my thing anymore.
I'm trying to jump back into it. I watched One Punch Man.
Cool.
And I was like, oh,
that's a good
cool.
one.
I was like, this is actually kind of interesting. And I'm going to try to start My Hero Academia soon. I think that's going to be the next one.
So popular, you might as well, right?
Might as well, right? But we were actually talking a little bit about bases, and I was admiring the Superman Batman one because it actually looks pretty cool. And I think Johnny pointed out, it looks like it's taken right out of the comic page.
Yeah, it has a lot of detail to it, which is cool.
But you made a great point. I think, I think it's a good idea. It's just the idea itself, for me personally, but you made a great point also.
Yeah, I mean, it's whether or not you like the base of a figure, I feel is kind of irrelevant because you're supposed to be looking at the character. You're supposed to be looking at the figure. That's the artwork they're trying to show off to you. So if you find that the bases are a little minimalistic, that's kind of why, right? It's just the canvas, essentially.
Right. No, I prefer that. I think a good base probably either should have a good idea or a good setting, I should say more specifically, or just keep it simple. I get a lot of the Kodo stuff, and it really is just them on some flat black surface.
Which is fine.
Which is fine, because to your point,
it's about the character.
It's about the character, so.
And then you get some that are simple enough, but still give a little nod to what's happening in the scene that this character is in. So there was the Batman.
The Dark Knight Metal. I want to say Doomsday. I think it is Doomsday technically.
Devastator. There we go. The Devastator. Yeah, he has that just the base that's just smashed into the ground. So it's nice and simple, but it still lends itself to the character.
Exactly. Yeah, and I usually prefer that. So I also want to point out, actually speaking of bases, something that doesn't have a base as far as I know. There's a Halo Master Chief figure that me personally, I love Halo. I know that there's a cliche about
Of
Halo
course there is.
players.
It's still good.
But it's still a fun game, whatever. But there's a Master Chief PX exclusive that's available. Only available comic shops. It's on the front page. Check out our latest news sections. It just looks gorgeous. We got a picture up for you too, of course. But like, yeah, it's called Mjolnir Mark V. So if you're into that sort of thing, I definitely am. You should check it out. And it's available at comic shops to pre-order right now.
Sure.
So, on that note, not dread time. Actually, it's time for contest. See, I remembered. We were talking about that I would not remember, and I almost didn't, but go ahead.
So we just have the winner from last week's contest, which is the DST Batwoman figure. And that is Dina Finato. And she answered our question of which Batwoman storyline is your favorite with, I absolutely loved the Greg Rucka and J.H. Williams III Batwoman. Although Ruby Rose's Batwoman is hot.
There you go. All right, why not? Yeah, so I figured she earned that with that comment.
For sure.
So yeah, a lot of people recommended the Rucka comic actually. Like that
Nice.
seems to be the go-to, which I totally understand because that J.H. Williams art is awesome. Yeah. And also, I mean, of course, Greg Rucka's a great writer. So like, yeah, like if you haven't read those, and I know I haven't yet. Both of us last week were saying we haven't read the Batwoman stuff. I guess that's exactly where you start.
Yep.
So there you go. One little recommendation, we got plenty, so I love it. But now, speaking of recommendations, it's time for a little DREDD conversation,
Absolutely.
right? So, like I mentioned, Saturday is Day of DREDD, and it just so happens 2000 AD provided us with a little video. Actually, it's kind of a long video, but it's a little educational in terms of what are the top 10 DREDD stories. So here it is, Judge Dredd's greatest hits. Check it out.
He's been bringing the law to the main streets of Megacity 1 for more than 40 years. But where do you begin if you want to get into reading Judge Dredd? The Judge Dredd The Complete Case File series has been publishing the complete stories of the lawman of the future in order for more than a decade, and they're still the best way to get to know Dredd and his world. But with more than 30 books and hundreds of stories, getting started can be a bit daunting. But you don't need to pick up every volume, you can start anywhere with Dredd, and here are our top 10 stories to get you hooked. Number 1. Hit the streets. So what's it like on the streets for a judge in this crowded metropolis of 800 million people? The Graveyard Shifting Case Files Volume 7 doesn't just explore the crazy, wacky world of Megacity 1, it also shows what an average night is like for a street judge. From a left-hand killer to crime swoops, from illegal bike clubs to block wars. This typical story of Megacity madness from regular writing duo John Wagner and Alan Grant combines their signature traits of blazing action and black humour. On the flip side, The Pit is a sprawling street-level epic contained in Case Files Volumes 24 and 25. Dredd takes over as chief of the most crime-ridden, most corrupt sector in the city. It introduces a whole cast of supporting characters who must deal with mountains of paperwork, violent mob bosses, corrupt colleagues, and even unjudicial liaisons. This is a modern classic, a filthy procedural epic to rival the likes of The Wire or The Shield. Number 2. The Apocalypse War. The mother of all epics, The Apocalypse War and its prologue Block Mania are contained in Case Files Volume 5. When multiple block wars erupt, Dredd discovers it's no coincidence and just the prelude to an all-out attack by the Soviet forces of East Meg 1. Nukes rain down in epic scenes as fleets of Strato V aerial units descend and the judges fight for survival. This was Megacity 1's darkest hour. But Dredd leads a brave guerrilla resistance against the invading Sovs. Blockmania contains work by Brian Bolland, Mick McMahon and Ron Smith, but it's Dredd's co-creator Carl Sascala's art on Apocalypse War that steals the show. This is a true epic in every sense. The ending alone is mind-blowing and has had fundamental consequences ever since. Number 3. Judge Death. Judge Dredd's ultimate nemesis, an undead alien superfiend from another dimension where all life has been declared a crime. Judge Death has returned again and again to slaughter the population of Megacity 1. Pick up Case Files Volume 3 for the chilling first story of this most popular of Dredd's villains, and Volume 5 for the introduction of his terrifying cohorts, Judges Fear, Fire and Mortis. Years later, the Dark Judges returned in Necropolis when they took over the entire city. This breathtaking epic in Case Files Volume 14 is one of the high points of the strip, a dark, horrifying story that pits Dredd against death itself. Number 4. Oz. Contained entirely in Case Files Volume 11, Oz is one of the classic epic Dredd storylines. Marlon Chopper Shakespeare is a graffiti artist and sky surfer, that's racing on levitating surfboards of course, who escapes from a Megacity 1 ISO cube to take part in the Super Surf competition in Australia. But first, he has to cross half the world, with Judge Dredd hot on his heels. At the same time, Dredd faces a force of mysterious, fanatical Judge clones called the Judder, who teleport into Megacity 1 to kill, and their trail leads to Oz. Part road trip, part sports movie, part adventure romp, this also features incredible work by Brendan McCarthy, who worked on Mad Max Fury Road. Number 5. Mechanismo. Forget Robocop, this is the real machine law. Short on manpower, Justice Department turns to robotic judges to make up their numbers. Trained to analyse and execute in an instant, the Mechanismo droids are deployed on the streets despite stern resistance from Judge Dredd. Of course, things don't go smoothly, and before long the bodies start piling up. This story explores the nature of the judges and their brand of justice, while also boasting beautiful Colin McNeil painted artwork. The original story is in Case Files Volume 18. Number 6. Democracy Now! One of the strengths of Judge Dredd is his ability to tell episodic, long-form stories, and the greatest of these is the Democracy storyline. It begins with Letter from a Democrat in Case Files Volume 9, when a group of pro-democracy terrorists take over a television station and are brutally gunned down by the judges. A huge pro-democracy march then springs up following the massacre, but it's undermined by Dredd using dirty tricks. Dredd has always been a satire on fascism and right-wing law and order politics, and this is the storyline where John Wagner and Alan Grant drove home the point, as Joe persecutes ordinary citizens hoping to change the system. To get the main stories, you'll need Case Files Volumes 9, 11 and 16. Number 7. Dredd vs. Zombies. In the 1990s, a young writer you may have heard of called Garth Ennis took over writing Judge Dredd and soon set about killing over 1 billion people. Judgment Day sees a mysterious necromancer called Sabat raise the dead and send them to attack the living. The battle becomes desperate, and cities are overrun, and even nukes can't stop the tide of the undead. It's not exactly a subtle storyline, but it's packed with action and plenty of gore. Plus there's a song and dance routine at the end. You also get the awesome sight of two of 2000 AD's greatest characters, Judge Dredd and Johnny Alpha, fighting head to head and then side by side. Pick up Case Files Volume 17 for the whole epic. Number 8. The Day the Lord Died. What happens when an egotistical madman somehow becomes the one in charge, wants to build a wall and goes a bit mad? Bit too close to the bone? Well, back in the late 1970s, Megacity 1 was rocked by the takeover of Chief Judge Cal, former head of the Special Judicial Service. He framed Judge Dredd using a robot double, brought in alien mercenaries to police the street, appointed a goldfish as his deputy, and vowed to kill every single citizen in alphabetical order. Can Dredd stop him before he carries out his monomaniacal plan? This is one of the maddest epics in Judge Dredd history, and The Day the Lord Died is contained in Case Files Volume 2. Number 9. The Judge Child. This is Star Wars by way of Homer's Odyssey, as Judge Dredd leads a crack squad in search of the Judge Child, a powerful telepathic kid who, it's claimed by Justice Department psychics, is destined to rule Megacity 1 in its darkest hour. This brilliantly bizarre and often surreal epic introduces the formidable headbutter Mean Machine Angel before Dredd heads into space and encounters everything from carnivorous planets to the terrifying Jigsaw disease, which erases sufferers block by block. Pick up Case Files Volume 4, but also check out Volume 8 for the follow-up City of the Damned, in which Judge Dredd and Judge Anderson travel into the future to find Megacity 1 destroyed, and because of something they did years before. Number 10. The Cursed Earth. Imagine Mad Max mixed with Damnation Alley and you have The Cursed Earth, the first true Judge Dredd epic. Over on the west coast of America, Megacity 2 has been struck by a terrible disease that turns citizens into insane murderers. And with the spaceports in their hands, the only way to deliver the antidote is for Dredd to cross the irradiated Cursed Earth. He's got to face dinosaurs, mutant gangs, flying rats, and even the last president of the United States. So if you're looking for the maddest, most nail-bitingly insane moments in Judge Dredd, then this is it, and it's included in Case Files number 2. Of course, you could always start from Volume 1 and work your way through one of the greatest ongoing comic series of all time. But we hope that gives you an idea of just some of the highlights from the Case Files series. Don't forget to support your local comic book store and ask them to order the Judge Dredd The Complete Case Files series through Diamond Distribution. Until next time, citizens.
And thank you to 2000 AD for that great video. It's a rundown of the top 10 Judge Dredd stories. And of course, if you want to get into some of those, head on over to your local comic shop, see if they're participating in Day of Dread, and you can get into those stories for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And the cool thing too about Judge Dredd is that he is very much not only part of like European comics culture, but also he's also part of just comics culture in general in a lot of ways. For example, he did several Batman Judge Dredd stories.
Yeah.
And like they're crossover books, which are actually kind of cool because you get to see like two characters who believe in different sides of the law clashing with each other, and they never miss an opportunity to do that in those stories.
Very cool.
So definitely check that out if you can. Also check out Small House. He's done tons of stuff. Just Alien versus Predator versus Judge Dredd. Like, I mean, that's one book. So definitely check all that stuff out. But speaking of Batman, we got a prize this week, don't we?
We do. We have a giveaway of the Batman Who Laughs hardcover from the DC Black Label, which we talked about earlier in the show, right?
Absolutely.
So if you guys want to win a copy of that, let us know who your favorite Batman villain is and why. Hit us up on social media wherever you can find us, and we'll take entries until next week and pick one of you to win.
Actually, we neglected to mention it at all early in the show.
It's true. We completely forgot.
We're telling you guys now.
Here you go. Win a thing.
Win a thing. Right. I'm sure you'll forgive us if you win. But what else we got this week? Comic shop shout out time?
Yeah, so we're coming to the end of the show, of course. If you guys want to have your favorite local comic shop featured on the show, let us know what they are. Use the hashtag #SupportYourLCS, and you could be featured on the show.
Cool. And I guess that's it for Previews World Weekly this week. Oh, actually, who is our...
Yes, speaking of,
comic shop shout out
the feature this week goes to All Star Comics in Melbourne, Australia, and that was sent to us by Catherine Raper.
There you go. All right. And... we're done with the show this week. I've been one of your hosts, Troy Jeffrey Allen.
And I'm Thea, and we'll see you at the spinner rack.
Thanks for watching Previews World Weekly. If you like the show, make sure to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on any future episodes.